Welcome back, everybody. I have actually had surgery this week, nothing too major, but I didn't really play that much, so my improvements have probably gone backwards, if anything. One of the things I wanted to fight, though, is I really wanted to figure out how to reduce the mage damage, because they're kind of my biggest problem in things like OPRs and arenas. So there's a bit of a debate going on at the moment whether physical aversion is better or elemental aversion, because a lot of people are saying that elemental aversion isn't very good because it doesn't reduce things like dots, it doesn't reduce the ice shower damage, and other people have said it doesn't reduce fireball or pillar of fire. So I wanted to test that out. I also made myself a set of flame conditioning, so I have elemental aversion and flame conditioning and resilience, and that was really, really nice. So I thought what I'd do is I'd go through all the different kind of mage damage types and then look at what's getting reduced and how much, so we can look at whether elemental aversion is worth it and whether elemental aversion and flame conditioning is worth it. So here are the 3 builds that I was testing to see against mage damage. And then I'll go into what the damage was. So we have the physical aversion build. Now the gear score is slightly different between the 3, but it didn't seem to make too much of an impact. The physical aversion build, so we've got no elemental aversion on this. It's all physical aversion. Okay, so this is like, and I've stacked everything into physical damage. So it should be pretty consistent. I'm running 200 con on each of the sets, and so this has got resilience on each of the pieces but completely lacking any kind of elemental aversion or flame conditioning. Then on the second set I have elemental aversion only, so you'll see elemental aversion, elemental aversion, elemental aversion, elemental aversion, elemental aversion. So that's a full elemental aversion set but no flame conditioning on that. Okay, so that's 4, 8, 12, 16, roughly 20% elemental. Should be doing about reduction of 20% elemental damage from ranged. And then my third set is elemental aversion and flame conditioning, 4 flame conditioning. So elemental aversion, flame conditioning, elemental aversion, flame conditioning, elemental aversion, flame conditioning. That just has elemental aversion and elemental aversion, flame conditioning. Alright, these are the raw results. I've looked at light attacks. I've looked at the split gem. His split gem was an ice gem. I've looked at dots, fireball, and pillar of fire. And so you can see all the kind of raw data here. But what we're mainly interested in is the totals and really the percentage difference. So for elemental aversion, the light attacks did 14% less damage than if I was wearing physical aversion. So basically I'm taking 14% less damage when I'm wearing elemental aversion from fire staff light attacks. So yeah. And then the split gem, I was taking 15% less damage. So the elemental aversion does work on ice gems, so elemental gems. It does reduce the damage, it seems like. Reduced it by 15%. Now the dots didn't get reduced, that's what I'd heard as well. So the elemental aversion isn't reducing the dot damage. Now this is interesting because it'll show that the dots did 1% less damage. So that's kind of, I think 1 to 2% is the error margin we're looking at. So I'd say really the elemental aversion is pretty much reducing damage by 15% roughly, because if you look at the fireball damage it's 16%, and if you look at the pillar of fire it's 14%. So roughly the elemental aversion is reducing damage on split gems, light attacks, fireballs, and pillar of fire by about 15%. In dots it's not reducing the damage. So then when you come over and you look at elemental aversion and flame conditioning, this is a reduction on the physical aversion, so it's the total reduction. So elemental aversion and flame conditioning reduced light attack damage by 24%. So that's an extra 10% from the elemental aversion. Split gem, it reduced it by 15%. So that makes sense because it's an ice gem, so it didn't do any further reductions on that. That's all the elemental aversion that's reducing that. It did reduce the dots by 13%. So that is obviously all the flame conditioning because the elemental aversion didn't work on that. It reduced the fireball by 20%. That's a lot lower than I would have expected. And it reduced the pillar of fire by 27%. So that's an extra, 12% on top of the elemental aversion. So it's the flame conditioning is reducing damage by about 10 to 12% on top of the elemental aversion. Now, I know the fireball seemed a bit odd, but I just think that was the way the numbers came out. If you look at the numbers that were commonly appearing, like in the elemental aversion, you've got some 1789s. They tended to be the more regular kind of damage that you were getting from fireballs. So I think we just had a little anomalies, and the elemental aversion and flame conditioning just rolled high values. If you actually look at the kind of more regular value you get for the fireball for the elemental aversion, it was a 14% damage reduction, which is sort of fits with what we'd expect. It's about a 15% damage reduction you'd expect from elemental aversion. And then if you look at the typical numbers you're seeing in the fireball with the elemental aversion and flame conditioning, it's about 1595, and that ends up being about a 23% damage reduction, so about another 9%. So that sort of fits with what's happening with everything else, roughly about a 10% extra damage reduction on top of the elemental aversion. So that's pretty much it. It seems like elemental aversion is reducing damage by 15%, but isn't impacting on dots. And the flame conditioning is reducing damage by about 10 to 12%, and it affects the dots, but not the split gems. So that is your take-home message. If you think about it, if you're using flame conditioning and elemental aversion, you're getting about a 25% damage reduction on fire staff attack, kind of like on the main attack. So yeah, if you run that and then you had all fuss gems, you're going to be getting about 35 to 45% damage reduction on bows and muskets, and then about a 25% damage reduction on fire staves. So you tell me if you think it's worth it. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you again next week.